That slide on the media player.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. Our program's going to get started in just a few minutes, but just wanted to make you aware of the emergency exit since we have a big crowd. There'll be the door that you walked in tonight. There's also an emergency exit behind the bar along the back wall, and then there's an emergency exit opposite corner of the door that you walked in. Those will be the three emergency exits if we need them tonight. Program will be starting in just a few minutes. Thank you. What's happening now?
It's a mess over there.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Governor Christie.
Exactly. How are you? Good to see you. Good to see you. Hey, thanks for coming.
Good to see you.
Good to see you. How are you? Brother? Brother? How are you? Good to see you. Thanks for coming. Thank you. We're back to Londonderry. Welcome, everybody. Please take a seat.
Welcome to Londonderry, Governor.
Happy to be back.
Am I sitting here, I guess?
Yeah, I think you are. Well, while she's still standing, my wife, Mary Pat. Well, thank you. Thank you all for coming tonight. It's great to have you here. Good to be in Londonderry back here at the VFW. This is a place where I was 8 years ago as well. American Legion. I said VFW. American Legion, sorry. I was at the American Legion 8 years ago here. So thank you for having me back. I appreciate it very much. And we got a lot to talk about. So I'm going to start off and talk about a couple of things that are on my mind, but really the most of the night, as it always, for you all to ask me questions about whatever is on your mind. And a lot on your mind as well. So we're looking forward to it. First, let's start off talking about an issue that is a really difficult one, emotional one right now, and it's abortion. And because of what's gone on in Texas the last couple of weeks, some of you may have read about it. You had a woman who was weeks pregnant. Her child, unfortunately, was diagnosed with renal disease in utero. And all the doctors she saw told her that there was absolutely no chance that her child be born alive. It would either be stillborn or it would die within hours after. And so she lives in Texas, and she came forward and said this, knowing I'm going to be here another 18 or 19 weeks, and my child is just going to die anyway. To just have an abortion now, so my time of recovery, and hopefully try to have another child. Well, given what the law was in Texas, she had to go to court. The initial court gave her permission for the abortion, and then the Supreme Court came in and told her she could not. And she then had no choice but to leave, which she did, to go and have the procedure done in another state where she wouldn't be held up from it. Now, look, I'm pro-life, and I believe that we should try to save every life that we can, because I believe every life is a precious gift from God. No saving this life. Everyone was told, every doctor she spoke to, told her that this child would either be stillborn or would die within a few hours of being born. Imagine, for any of us, to be the woman who is carrying that child and had been carrying that child and now knows what's going to happen, to have to live and suffer for another 4 months and carrying the child that long, knowing there was no hope. That's not what being pro-life means to me. And always concerned about the mother. And by the way, carrying the child even longer could threaten her own life. And we have to be concerned about the life that we have in front of us, especially when there's no hope for the life that's being carried in the womb. Now, it seems to me this should have been a pretty easy decision, and the Texas Supreme Court got it wrong. But what I'm concerned about in the context of this race is, we've all gotten asked about this. The 4 remaining major candidates have got this. Donald Trump won't comment on it. Haley got asked about it, and she said, we should deal with this with compassion. And my heart goes out to the mother. And then they asked her, but was the Texas Supreme Court right or wrong? And she said, I'm pro-life and we should have compassion. Look, this is a continued discussion on Governor Haley's part. Question's really hard. She wants to make everybody happy. And I understand that inclination, right? If you're in this business, you'd like to make everybody happy. In fact, in most of our lives, we want to make everybody. But you can't sometimes. So these are the question. You know, they asked about whether she thought abortion should be governed by the states or whether there should be a federal law on abortion. Now, you all know, because you've heard me answer this, that I do not believe, and nor would I sign as president, any kind of federal ban on abortion. I think this should be decided by each state individually, and most particularly the people of that state. I don't think the politicians should be making these decisions in Washington, D.C. I think each and every state, and that's the way the Constitution intended it, That's why I thought Roe versus Wade was wrong, because it took it away from individual members of each state. I trust the citizens to make this decision, and not a group of politicians in some state house or worse yet, in Congress. Imagine, see those guys and women? They took 3 weeks to pick a speaker. They've got, now they had the president of Ukraine over there. They couldn't even get together to try to help them. They can't vote on border security. They can't vote on aid to Israel. And here's the great news. They've now decided, well, we can't get any of this done, so we're going to go home for Christmas. Excellent. Thank you very much. Thanks for your dedicated service. I mean, it's crazy. We don't want to turn this over to them to decide. But last night, Governor Haley said, well, I have no problem with the people making this decision. I'm like, okay, well, there's some progress. But then they said, well, is there room for federal law? And she said, well, I think there's room for a federal law. I'm like, well, which one is it? Either you let the people decide or it's a federal law. One or the other. Beware, everybody. Beware of the person who won't answer your question. And you saw me on the debate stage last week. I didn't want to be the fourth moderator, right? I didn't want to be. But hell, man, they won't answer the questions. Is Donald Trump fit for office? That should be a fairly easy question for people to get to. I'll get to that in a minute. Ron DeSantis was using everything other than yes or no. He's lost a little off the fastball. Father Time is undefeated. Hey, answer the question, yes or no. Would we send troops to Israel if we thought we could save the American hostages who are being held from Hamas? I got asked that. I said, yes. Ron said, well, it would depend on the circumstances. It would depend, but I think that Israel has to run the war. And they're like, but would you send the troops? Wouldn't answer. Wouldn't answer. I mean, you have a right to know these things. And the same thing with Governor Haley. And especially on this issue. She says a whole word salad. Let's be compassionate. We have to be understanding and compassionate. Was the court right or wrong? Should we have a federal law or shouldn't we? Should the states and the people decide or not? These are not easy questions, but they're direct ones. And look, and guess what? If that was her answer, I'd say, okay, right? And look, and if that was her answer, that's a perfectly valid opinion. But answer the question is my point. I have my opinion, you have your opinion, and that's why I believe the voters should decide. Because there's going to be lots of different opinions. And the voters will make the decision and should make the decision about an issue that's so emotional and so difficult. But stop. You can't. And by the way, I forgot to tell you about what she said in Iowa, because it was different again. In Iowa, she was asked would she sign a 6-week abortion ban. Now, she was in a conservative organization in Iowa across from an evangelical leader. So what do you think she said? Yes. I'd sign a 6-week ban, yes. I'm pro-life, I'd sign a 6-week ban. I want to be clear again so you know. I would sign no federal ban of any kind on abortion because I think that the people should make this decision and not the federal government. And if I'm president, I would not sign that in any way, shape, or form. Let's get to that. Is Donald Trump fit question or not? I think you all know my opinion. But here's the thing. We got asked that directly on the stage, and Governor Haley wouldn't answer it, and Governor DeSantis wouldn't answer it. Governor Haley's stock answer is, he's the right president. He was the right president at the right time. And for some reason, drama and chaos follow him wherever he goes. Let me suggest this. That's like an arsonist saying, for some reason, burning buildings follow me wherever I go. We know why drama follows him and chaos follows him wherever he goes, because he creates it. He creates it. This is a guy who at 2:03 a.m. on Thanksgiving morning, 2:03 a.m. on Thanksgiving morning, he wasn't cooking the turkey, I can guarantee you that. 2:03 a.m. on Thanksgiving morning, puts out a social media post saying, here is the list of all the people he hates that he's thankful for. I mean, seriously, what kind of lunatic on Thanksgiving Day, when pondering at 2 o'clock in the morning, what are you thankful for? Now, I don't know. When I thought about that, I thought about, I'm thankful for my family. I'm thankful I'm thankful that I live in the greatest country in the world. I'm thankful that my dad is 90 years old and dating a 74-year-old woman. Right? It gives me hope. I gotta hope I can live to 90. And when I get to 90, who knows? I hope you'll still be there, honey, but but of all the things that would be running through my mind at 2 o'clock in the morning, it wouldn't be, let me think about all the people I hate and put them in a list in a social media post for the entire world to see as the former president of the United States. First of all, I don't hate anybody. And I think that's one of the problems we have right now in this country is hate. That word is used too much and too loosely, and it's what's dividing us. I want a country again where we open our hearts, even the people we disagree with. And we can disagree with them vehemently, and you guys have all seen me disagree pretty for the years. I'm ready to have a good fight over something that matters with anybody. But it doesn't mean I hate them. I disagree with them. I don't hate them. And this word is used too much now in this country. And we're not going to be able to come together as a country and do the things that we need to do and solve the problems we need to solve if we're talking that way. So this is what we got as the front runner right now. And this guy who's putting, here are the people I hate the most. And I'm thankful for that on Thanksgiving. He is unfit to be president of the United States. He cares more about himself than he cares about the country. He's worried more about keeping himself out of jail than he is worried about fixing the problems we have here and around the world. He is always first. Now, to me, that's the definition of unfit. So, Nikki Haley was asked that, and so was Ron DeSantis on the stage of debate. You saw what they did. There's more dancing going on there than there is in Dancing with the Stars. It's unbelievable. You heard the fastball has lost a couple of miles per hour. The Father Time's undefeated, et cetera, et cetera. Well, she gave an interview yesterday where she was nailed down on it. They said, is he fit or isn't he? She said, he's fit to be president of the United States. Now, look, then run as his running mate. Okay? He's fit to be president of the United States. You can't keep trying to thread this needle where you don't want to offend anyone. Believe me, it's not easy to come out and say some of the things that I say sometimes about the former president, but I think he's earned and deserves every word of it. And if I get booed a little bit because of it, if I'm worried about that, how am I going to do when I sit across from Putin or Xi, right? Or Chuck Schumer, for God's sake? You got to be ready for that. And you got to be stand your ground. Who is afraid of telling the truth. The slogan of our campaign is because the truth matters. That is why I'm running. That is why I'm here, because we've got to make the truth matter in this country again. And we have to do it. It's not up to anybody else. It's up to us. And we have to fight for the truth. We're going to disagree. This country was set up to be a disagreement. But a disagreement that leads to a conclusion, a compromise, an end result. Not just a never-ending argument that makes us spin our wheels in the mud. And I'm a governor, a Republican governor from a blue state. Which means I had a Democratic legislature every day of my 8 years. Every minute of every day. For 8 you have that, you're taught a lesson. There and hold your breath and get nothing done. Or you get in there and you use the bully pulpit to make your point. You move the argument in your direction. At some point, you make a deal. You put a touchdown in the end zone for you. People who didn't. We need that idea back in Washington, D.C., who is willing to put getting things ahead of his own personal interests, getting things done ahead of his party for you. So I'll end this part with this and go to your questions. There are 41 days to go till you vote. 41 days. And some of those days are going to be Christmas and New Year's. Hanukkah's just ending. It's game time, everybody. And it's time to start making some decisions. And I'm not going anywhere else. I am going to be here. Mary Pat is going to be here. You know that, right? Yeah. We're going to be here, and we're going to be asking you for your vote. And I want to make sure that you understand something. New Hampshire can change the course in history. Unique to any time. Because of what you can put us to the anger, bitterness, and the division in this country. You can say, we're going to start the ball rolling. It's going to Hampshire. And you are all the luckiest people in America. Because you go first. You go first. And so there's no excuse. Say, well, you know, the polls say this, or, you know, my neighbors don't like it when I say something bad about Trump, or, you know, I'm a little nervous. I had a woman grab me in Nashua, and she whispered to me, she said, keep going, go get Trump, go get him. And I said, I will, but why are you whispering? She said, friends don't like when I say it. Guess what? You don't have to. You just go in there and I'm not going to be here running around every day. What I'll be thinking is, how do I move the ball down the field and put touchdowns in the end zone for all the American people? And wouldn't that be a difference over what we've had for the last 10 years between Barack Obama, Donald Trump, and Joe Biden? We need a change from all that, and you all can do it. New Hampshire can do it. So we're going to go to your questions, because there's lots of issues to talk about, and I don't like to talk about all of them off the top, because then we can just sit down. So I'm going to go to all of you. We have people with microphones. The only reason I want you to wait till you get the microphone is because all these people with the cameras, they want to hear it and have it on their video. So they can't hear you if you're not on the microphone. So we're going to start, and we will start right over here with this gentleman in the blue vest.
Thank you very much for coming. We really
Thank you for
appreciate it.
coming, sir.
Thank you. My question is, and you will answer it because you answer questions unlike the other candidates.
Yep.
What is the very first thing after you take the oath of office?
Well, the very first thing I'll do after I take is I'll give my inaugural address. I'll head back to the White House, and I'll probably go to the Oval Office for the first time, sit in the chair, take a deep breath, and say, oh my God, I'm here. And then I will sign an National Guard to the southern border. Okay? Because our Customs and Border Patrol officers are overwhelmed. There's 200,000 attempted illegal crossings a month right now. Those men and women are overwhelmed, and they need help. So what I would do is, first thing, sign the executive order to send National Guard to help them. Then, on immigration, I would hire 10,000 new Customs and Border Patrol officers. Now, it's going to take a year for us to recruit them, train them, and deploy them. The National Guard stays there until they get there. And as all the new Customs and Border Patrol officers come in, National Guard moves back and goes back to home. But National Guard is here to protect the nation inside the country. And we need to use them to protect our border. Third thing I would do on immigration is to make sure that we add to our detention beds that we have. We have 200,000 attempted illegal crossings a month. We have 38,000 detention beds. You know, I went to law school because I couldn't do math or science. But even I could do that math, guys, right? So we would double it to 80,000. That'll take a year or two to get all those beds down there, to build the things that we need to hold people safely and securely. But because you know what's going on now, we get people, we release them into the country and say, come on back for your hearing later. Sure. Right? I'll meet you there. Right? And that leads to point 4, which is I would triple the number of immigration judges, because right now, for people to get a hearing, they wait 4 years. 4 years to get a hearing. Well, you know what happens. You can't hold someone for 4 years. So they release them into the country, and then they say, in 4 years, come on back to El Paso and come for your hearing, which may result in you being kicked out of the country. Good luck. No chance, right? But if we triple the number of immigration judges, we can bring the time for hearing below a year. And then we can detain people for that period of time, give them their hearing, and then if they qualify for asylum in the country, fine. But if they don't, they go back home, and we don't just release them into the country and then lose track of them after that. And fifth and final is we got to change the immigration laws in this country. We have 6 million open jobs in this country right now. 6 million open jobs. I had a guy who came to our town hall last week who talked about his father's auto body shop. And he said that his father is turning away work because he can't hire people to help him. And that the only people who came to be hired were folks who were here illegally. He's unwilling to break the law. And so he's turning away work and working himself 6 days a week, 12 hours a day. We've got to be able to have an immigration system that says we got 6 million open jobs. Let's look at what areas they're in. And if you have expertise in that area, you go to the front of the line. We've done this all through our history. You know, my great-grandfather came here in 1901. He's a stonemason in Sicily. And he heard they were building in New York, and they needed masons. And so he got his name on a list, and eventually he got a call that he got his ticket to come to America. Now, at the time he came to America, my great-grandmother was 9 months pregnant. So he said to her, I'll go first. You wait here and have the baby and then meet me. My great-grandmother, very smart woman. She's like, you are not going to America by yourself, buddy, and leaving me here. No chance. He goes, what happens if you have the baby? She goes, if I have the baby, I'll have the baby. Well, as luck would have it, my grandfather was born 4 days into the journey in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. And he always said to me, growing up, he would tell this story very proudly, because he'd say, the proudest day of my life was a day I don't even remember. He said, because it was the day we got to Ellis Island. And when I came there as a few-day-old infant, they made me an American. And now his grandson is running for president of the United States. This is the strength and the power of our country. Unless there's some Mayflower descendants in the room, which here in New Hampshire there could be. There you go. Congratulations. Except for the Mayflower descendants, man, we've all immigrated here, and our families have since 1776. But let's give people a way to do it legally. And let's have it merit-based, get to the front of the line, and then give employers E-Verify. So like that guy at the auto body shop, he can know for sure someone he's hiring is here legally. So he's not breaking the law. And, you know, to do those things, Democrats don't want that. So to do those things, we're going to have to give the Democrats something. I don't know what it's going to be. Maybe it's something on Dreamers. Maybe it's something on Path to Citizenship for people. But we're going to have to make a deal, because for 20 years, we've had our heels dug in and they've had their heels dug in. And that's why we got 200,000 people illegally coming over the border a month. And by the way, in the last few months, 200 of them were on the terror watch list. So this is no longer just an economic issue. This is a national security issue. So that's what I do right after I took the oath. I'd sign that executive order, and they get all the rest of that in the works, because we have to fix the southern border. But let me just remind you something. I'll bring you back to the debate Wednesday night. Remember Governor DeSantis' answer? I'll shoot them stone cold dead when they come over the border. If they have a backpack on, we're going to shoot them stone cold dead. Now, look, like, you can't do that. This country doesn't do stuff like that.
And no American soldier, National Guardsman or woman, is going to just indiscriminately shoot and kill people at the border. No matter what the commander-in-chief says, they'll leave. That's not who we are. And that's, I use the phrase TV tough guy talk. That's TV tough guy talk. And by the way, you know what else he adds to? He's going to build the wall, and Mexico's going to pay for it. Now, shit, have we heard that before? And the last guy who said that built 52 miles of the wall, and Mexico hasn't paid the first peso towards it. Although if he knew they were only going to build 52 miles, maybe they would have paid. I don't know. But, you know, stop trying to sell us this stuff. I will finish the wall too, but we're going to pay for it. It's just the way it goes. It's our wall. It's on our property. It's like going to your neighbor and saying, I'm building a fence on my property. I'd like you to pay for it. Like, it's never going to happen. And yet they think we're stupid. And they use that tough guy talk because they know we're angry and upset about their incompetence. And so then they use tough guy talk to try to make you feel like, okay, I'm going to fix the problem and just shoot them. Let's get serious answers to important issues, right? And let's tell the truth about them. And that's exactly what I'll do, and that's exactly the kind of president I'll be, and that's what I'll do right after the oath. So thanks for asking. Yes, sir, right there with hat, baseball cap.
Yeah, Chris. Chris, always enjoyed you being a pundit on ABC.
Thank you.
Put on your pundit hat for a second. I think the how well Trump's doing in the polls is going to be a prize that we get in February. That it's not going to pan out, right? When people show up, like you say, it's in private, things are going to change. Why are the polls so wrong? You must believe it.
Oh, yeah, I believe it. Well, how about this? Okay, so let's start there. In 2016, there was not one poll that had Donald Trump winning the election, except for Trafalgar right at the very end, had him winning. The exit polls that night said she was going to win 360 electoral votes and a Democratic House and Senate. Here's what happened. It wasn't politically correct then to say you were for Donald Trump and against Hillary Clinton. He had just had the Access Hollywood stuff 4 weeks earlier. You don't want to go walking around saying, hey, yeah, I'm voting for Trump. You know, the guy who said that thing on the tape. Yeah, I'm voting for him. A lot of people were unwilling to say that. And a lot of people were unwilling to say they were against the first woman who had ever been nominated by one of the major parties. So you know what they did? They lied. They lied to pollsters. And then when they got in the voting booth, they lied. They came out of the voting booth, they got exit polled. How did you vote? Oh, yeah, I voted for Clinton. Yep, absolutely. Back in the car. See you later. And the polls were wrong. I think the exact opposite is happening now. I think what's happening now is it's not politically correct as a Republican to say you're against Trump. That woman whispering to me in the restaurant when I went to the Republican Party of Florida convention, filled with Trump supporters, booing me just when I was introduced. I hadn't even said anything yet. Christie, ooh, you know, like, okay. You know, they're the loudest, but it doesn't mean they're the most.
Yep.
And so I do think it, and that's why I'm saying in New Hampshire, like you have an opportunity that they don't even have in Iowa, really, because Iowa's a closed system. It's a caucus. It's a closed system. Here, independents can vote. Democrats who have converted to independent can vote, and Republicans can vote. So this is a truly open primary where the people really get to have their voice be heard. And I think the polls are wrong because I think, first, it's harder to poll now. You know, it used to be everybody just had a landline in their house. You knew where that landline was. You picked it up. They knew you were in the 603, and that was that. But sometimes, now all of us have cell phones. They got to poll us on cell phones. Those cell phones, if you move from one place to another, you have a different area code, depending upon where you bought it. You might have a 603 area code. Maybe you moved. They're calling you. They say you're in New Hampshire. Oh, yeah, I'm in New Hampshire. Sure, yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. It's harder for them to poll. And secondly, you know, people now are really suspicious of anybody who calls them on their phone that they don't know, right? And like, who is this person? And like, why do I want to tell this person who I'm voting for? So polling has become much, much more difficult. And I think that in this particular circumstance, we're very watching the very opposite of what happened to Hillary Clinton. And I remember on election night of 2016, let me tell you who else didn't think Donald Trump was going to win. Donald Trump. I was there. I was in his apartment watching the returns on election night. And at about 11:30, when it started to become clear, holy God, he might win, his speechwriter came up to me and said, Governor, can I get a little help from you? I said, sure, what do you need? He goes, I have an exquisitely crafted concession speech. I don't have a victory speech. This is a true story. This is 11:30 on election night. I don't have a victory speech. So me, Stephen Miller, the speechwriter, Ivanka Trump, and Mike Pence sat at Donald Trump's dining room table and wrote his acceptance speech on election night. He didn't think he was going to win. No chance. When they called Pennsylvania for him, I was sitting next to him. And he turned to me and he went like this. Okay, so, I don't believe this stuff. I believe the best it shows are trends, but not exactitude in any way. And I think because of that, we got to stop trying to figure out who's going to win and decide who we want to win. And then go make it happen. And New Hampshire can do that. So that's my view on that. Yes, we've got the young lady right there in the glasses in the front. This young lady right here. No, the one in front of you. I'll get to you, though. Don't you worry about it.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much. Can
Thank
you
you.
hear me?
I can.
I want to thank you very much for the debate last week, which I watched. And just like you, I looked at my watch at 8:15 and I said, these people are acting like a bunch of kids in the schoolyard. All they're doing is screaming and yelling over each other. And so my question to you, well, first of all, let me just say, thank you so much for the decorum. Thank you for the patience, and thank you for the intelligence last week.
Thank you.
Thank you very, very, very much. I also want to say thank you for answering the questions that are asked of you, and that I mean very sincerely.
My mother taught me that.
I'm glad
I
because
get smacked
she's
if I didn't.
Italian, so am I.
Yeah, that's exactly right. You know that.
There you go. So, Governor Christie, politics is a mess right now. It's chaos. I can't even watch the news anymore without getting discouraged. So my question to you, sir, is, as President of the United States, what steps will you take moving forward to try to get everybody to be a Tip O'Neill and a Ronald Reagan again?
All right. Well, it's a really good question. And I will say this. First off, I just got done writing a book on Ronald Reagan. And it's going to come out in a few weeks. But when I was doing the research for that, it was amazing to me to see how hard he worked at it. It did not come easy. It's hard work. He had to develop relationships with all these folks and get them to trust him and listen to him. And the only way to do that is to listen to them. And I learned this when I was governor, because I had Democrats who, every day disagreed with me. So, and, we have 1 million more Democrats in New Jersey than we have Republicans. So it wasn't just the times. But the way to do this is you have to start once again to focus, as I said before, on getting things done. And secondly, you only can do it through human relationships, right? I go by a philosophy that was told to me by somebody early in my career. They said it's a lot harder to hate up close. It's easy to hate over Twitter or X. It's easy to hate on social media. It's easy to hate in front of a crowd of 20,000 people. But when you're that close, and that's the relationship as president you have to create with people in Congress. Now, you're not going to be able to have it with all of them, but you don't need it with all of them. You need it with a majority of them. And I did that as governor. I would do things from serious to what I consider to be somewhat silly. So in the serious stuff, I would have all of the key people in the legislature at one time or another in my office, and I would sit and say to them, when you came here first, like, what you want to accomplish? What motivated you to achieve here to achieve in the first place? You get to know a lot about somebody, about their spouse, and do they have children, about their career, because yours is it's a lot harder for them to say no to you. Accomplish something you want to accomplish. How many times do you think they've ever been asked that? In this system, not many. asks you that in the Oval Office, or the governor of New Jersey, it has an impact. And you have to do that. And I would do silly things too. I called every legislator every year on their birthday. To the point where by the time we got to like year 3, I used to do it in the morning every day, back and forth, each way. So I would do it usually in the morning. I'd see on my calendar today, I'd pick up the phone and call them. But there would be some mornings where I had actual, early meetings, or I had phone calls I had to take. By the time I got to the 3rd year, if I didn't call them, like between 7:30 and 8:30, they would like start texting me. Governor, it's my birthday today. Do you remember? It became a thing. And they would talk to other people. The governor called me on my birthday. Wish happy birthday. Oh yeah, yeah. He knew how old I was and everything. Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, we're close. We're close. You have to do all that and more to the country in a way that makes people understand that we're all Americans. One of the great things that Ronald Reagan did, right? Thank you. One of the great things that Ronald Reagan did was make us proud to be Americans. He talked about how lucky we were to live in this country. What an obligation we had, not only to each other, but to the rest of the world, to defend freedom and liberty, stand up for people that practice their religion freely, not the craziness we have going on college campuses right now. That doesn't represent respect for people. We have to have a president who doesn't talk about who he hates, who doesn't talk about who you should hate, but talks about why, as we're Americans together, we're the greatest country the world's ever known. And the last thing is, the next president will be lucky enough to be president on our 250th birthday. July 4th, 2026 is coming. And I will tell you that if I'm president, that's not going to be a day where we talk about our divisions and our differences and our disagreements. It's going to be a day when we talk about how fortunate we are that we had George Washington and John Adams and Thomas Jefferson and Benjamin Franklin and Alexander Hamilton and Abigail Adams and people who cared enough about this country to form it in the first place. And we are the luckiest people in the world. And if we have an American president who starts talking like that again, a lot of the anger and the chaos that you're seeing will dissipate, because we'll call people to their better angels. Call people to why they came here in the first place. And if we do that, we're not going to fix all the anger, not all of it, ever. But we'll be a much happier country than we are right now. And that's one of my goals as president. So thank you. Here you go. Got one right behind you.
So I'm sure you're aware, everybody in this room is aware, the most expensive vehicle is a shopping cart. What are we going to do about inflation? Or what are you going to do about inflation?
Sure.
Sorry.
I was just over at the Market Basket, helping the Salvation Army, ringing the bell for the red kettle over at the Salvation Army for about 35 minutes in front, and it started to snow. It was great. I knew I was back in New Hampshire. It was really good. And one of the guys walked out. That's why I'm bringing it up. One of the guys walked out, and he had 2 bags in his cart. And he said to me, "Governor, I'm voting for you because I know if I'd be able to have 6 bags in this cart. But I can tell you how I'll do it. First is we got to stop spending so much in the government, because the more we spend, we're borrowing. The more we borrow, the more interest rates go up. The more interest rates go up, inflation goes up. And it causes what you're seeing at the supermarket, $5 loaf of bread, right? We can't have this stuff. $4.50 gallon of milk. It's crazy. $8. I'm getting to it, baby. Come on now. I love this guy. He's ready. $8 for a box of cereal, right? $8. I went to the supermarket the other day, and I picked up a box of rice checks. Rice checks. There ain't much to it. It's rice. It's water. That's it. It's $7.99. So, first thing is we got to stop borrowing so much. How would I do that? First is we go back immediately when I'm president to pre-COVID levels of spending. We're still spending like we were during COVID. If we just did that, we'd cut $1 trillion off our deficit. Just going back to the way we spent pre-COVID. So we'd take our deficit this year from 1.7 trillion to 700 billion. Still much too much, but that's the way we'd start. Secondly, and that would help to bring interest rates down because we're not borrowing another $1 trillion. We don't have to print another $1 trillion. You're not going to have the inflation you have now. Second, we have to get back to being energy independent. Your point. Look, oil is a futures market, meaning that they bet on what the price is going to be 3 months from now. Not now. They know what it is now. So if we start to drill again throughout this country, build natural gas pipelines, we're going to be able to bring the price of oil down immediately because they're going to go, wow, there's going to be much more of a supply. I'll give you an example. In North Dakota alone, when Joe Biden got elected president, we were getting 2 million barrels of oil a day out of North Dakota. 6 months after Joe Biden was president, it was down to 1 million barrels a day. And you know what he did? He went and bought the 1 million barrels a day from Venezuela. Venezuela. What are we doing, right? They're charging us a fortune. Prices are going up. And the reason why energy prices are the most important thing in bringing down inflation is because the price of energy affects everything. The supermarket, you gotta have oil that is a key part of creating the food for farmers and all the rest. You gotta have gasoline for the trucks and the trains that bring the food to the supermarket. All of that, if you bring that down, they can take that out of the price, the lower price, and we have a lower price and we bring inflation down on food prices. Third, we need to once again have fiscal discipline beyond just the COVID stuff. So like when I became governor of New Jersey, we had an $11 billion deficit on a $29 billion budget. And everybody thought I was going to have to raise taxes to do that. Instead, what I did was something called zero-based budgeting, which means this. If the way they normally do it in government is whatever you spent last year is where you start, and then you add from there. What I said to my folks was, we can't afford to do that. We're broke. And remember, on the state level, you have to balance the budget. You can't run a deficit, so it's not optional. And I said, everybody starts at zero and justifies every program you have to me. And either I say yes or no. I sat for 6 weeks, 3 days a week, 6 hours a day, just going through program by program by program. And I passed on every program. What did we do? In the first year, we eliminated 832 programs in New Jersey. And we balanced our budget without raising taxes. And in fact, never raised taxes the whole 8 years we were there. And balanced the budget every year. You know why? Because we only increased spending less than 2% a year every year. It was 1.8%. And of that 1.8%, 90% of it was pension, health benefits, and debt service. So stuff that we didn't really have an option whether to pay or not, which meant that our overall spending on discretionary stuff went up 0.2% a year. That's the kind of discipline I'm going to bring back to the federal government. Because if we do that within 8 years, we can balance the budget again. Stop adding to the $33 trillion in debt that we have. And that's what we can do. But, you know, Trump came at us in 2016 and said, I'm a businessman. I know about budgets. I'm going to balance the budget in 4 years. And what did he do? He added $7.8 trillion in debt in 4 years. Between he and Biden, now think about this, we have $33 trillion in debt overall right now. He's added 7.8 trillion. Biden's added 6 trillion. So nearly 14 trillion of the 33 trillion have been added in the last 7 years. It's insane. And that's why you're seeing the inflation you're seeing. We started back down on the road this way. Inflation will come down and interest rates will come down. So if you want to buy a home, you can afford to buy a home. You want to buy a car, you can afford to buy a car because interest rates won't be 6, 7, 8, 9%. They'll be 2, 3%. And you'll be able to afford to do those things. That's the way to do it. All of it is hard work. None of it is easy. And by the way, when I did the 832 programs elimination, my popularity went from 55% to 38%. Right? Because all those programs had a constituency. Somebody liked them. That's how they got there in the first place. But you can't be scared of that. Because I knew if I did what I promised I would do, which was not raise their taxes, balance their budget, and run the government efficiently and effectively, that they'd reward me. And guess what? 3 years later, after I was at 38%, I got reelected in a blue state with 61% of the vote. And it's not because they agreed with everything I did. It's because they went, well, he told us what he was going to do. He kept his word. He did it. And we got to reward that. And even Democrats who didn't agree with me voted for me. I remember going, the last thing I'll say on this is I got a woman, I was campaigning for re-election, and there are hundreds and hundreds of diners in New Jersey. And so I'm in one of these diners campaigning. She's sitting eating breakfast by herself. I went up and introduced myself, and she said, "Yeah, I can't vote for you." And I said, "Why not?" And she said, "Because I disagree with you on a few issues, and I can't vote for you." And I said, "Can I sit down?" Now, all the press, like they are here, we're following me, right? She goes, "Okay." So I sit down and I said, "Well, let's talk about a few issues. Tell me the issues that are most important to you." And we started to go through them. I said, "Well, wait, you agree with me on that? And you agree with me on that? And you agree with me on that?" And she looked up finally after 3 of those and she said, "I knew I shouldn't have let you sit down." She goes, "Now I'm going to have to vote for you." And we shook hands and she said, "You know why I'm voting for you?" And I said, "No, why?" And she goes, "Because I like you." Now, in the end of it, the reason someone likes you or doesn't like you, there's a whole bunch of reasons. But when you're an elected official, the biggest reason I think it is whether you keep your promises or you don't. And if you keep your promises, they like you. And if you break your promises, they let you warily. So that's what I would do on that. So, yes, ma'am, right there. Right behind you. There you go.
Sorry. I have a silly question. Do you have a campaign song?
A campaign sign?
Song.
Oh, song. No. No. Because then I'd be tempted to sing. And I don't think you all would want to hear that. But I will tell you that that it does seem when I come out and leave that my staff seems to play Springsteen stuff, right? And Bruce is the Jersey guy, and he's thank you. He's a friend, and I've gone now. Now you're gonna get me to make an admission. I'm gonna make a confession to you. I don't drink. I don't smoke. I don't do drugs. But I have been to 152 Bruce Springsteen concerts. 152. And when I told Bruce that recently, he said, "My children thank you. My grandchildren thank you." So if there was going to be one Bruce song, that would be the song for this campaign. It would be "No Surrender." That's what it would be. Yes, sir, right there.
Governor, it's become popular for candidates to talk tough on China. But China is both a nuclear power and 1/7 of the world's population. So we have an interest of developing a constructive relationship as well. Can you talk about how you can be tough where that's in our national interest and constructive when that's in our national interest?
Well, we better be, because like last year, we used over $650 billion in Chinese imports. And they imported from us another $375 billion. So that's over $1 trillion in trade, going each way that we do with the Chinese. And this is another one I love about Nikki. Now, you may have heard this in debate too. She said, "I'm going to end all normal trade relations with China unless they stop sending fentanyl here." Well, I don't want them sending fentanyl here either. But I want to understand this. Like, we don't have normal trade relations with China as it is. We have 95% of the products have tariffs on them. That's new. If you have all those tariffs, you don't have normal trade relations. So I assume what she means is she's going to end the trade with China. Good luck trying to find like a light bulb, trying to find, anything, right? Go through the list, right? So we're interconnected. Now, here's the problem. The problem is that they're stealing from us. See, where I would draw the line is when they steal from us. The thing that makes the American economy the greatest economy in the world is our innovation. We come up with new, smart, great things faster than any country in the world. And if you want to do business with China, you know what you have to do? Well, so when Apple goes over there, they say, "Oh, we'd love to have your business over here." Absolutely, you can manufacture. We need to have all of the designs for the iPhone. And you need to share them with us. And then they open companies that compete using our intellectual property. Now, Donald Trump said, when we raise the tariffs, they'll stop doing that. Well, he raised the tariffs, all right. And they didn't stop doing any of it. And you know what the tariffs have done? Increased prices to us. That's it. It hasn't changed their behavior one iota. He said he made the greatest trade deals with China, right? You've heard him brag about his trade deals. Do you know on the agricultural trade deals that he made, China's only fulfilled 1/3 of the promises of agricultural products that they were supposed to buy from our farmers? 1/3. It doesn't matter what you promise. It matters what you buy and what you deliver. So we got to hold them to their promises. And look, the way to do that is two ways. First is you don't let them do anything new with us unless they start doing the old stuff within the law. So we can't cut back. We should be doing things, and I'll get to how we deal with national. We should be on anything that we do that's new. If they want to be a part of it, you got to play the rules. You got to stop stealing from us. You do steal from us, you're out. We're not going to have you be involved in any of our new things. We'll be where we are now, and that's it. That's not good for them because their economy is in much worse shape than ours. They're hurting big time, and they need us. Why do you think President Xi came to San Francisco? It wasn't to see the Golden Gate Bridge. He came over because all these American businessmen and women were there, and he wanted to make sure they kept coming to China and doing business. On the national security side, though, look, the really important thing from our perspective is we've got to expand our Navy. Our Navy is the single most important deterrent to China, especially our nuclear submarines. Because those submarines can be hidden, they are quiet, and the Chinese have no idea where they are. That's what we want. We want to put some of those submarines in the South China Sea, and if they're thinking about Taiwan, that makes 2/3 of the, microprocessors in the world, which means you won't even be able to turn your car on, let alone anything else. We say to them, well, you can try that if you want, but you don't know how many of those nuclear submarines with Tomahawk missiles we have on them that are within a real close distance to you. Is the juice worth the squeeze? You want to try? We got to make that threat real. And we have it. Right now, we just don't have enough submarines. We've let it fall back. And that happened during the war on terror. We stopped building submarines. We started spending money on other things. I get it. But we now need to reamp that up on the national security side. I don't care with us. Just compete with us fairly. And I don't care about anything other than protecting our economic security and our national security. And if you let the Chinese know, look, you compete with us, you'll beat us in some stuff. But we can never be in a position again like we were in COVID. Found out how many things were made in China that were important to our health security and our national security. And we can't have that again. So we do have to onshore things that are vital to our health system and our national security and make sure that we have redundancies over here so that if we have some kind of crisis, they can't hold us hostage like they did during COVID. Remember how much they were charging us for masks? Right? It's crazy. So that's what we need to do. Let's go with one of the younger guys right here.
Hello. I wanted to ask you about AI. Are you more supportive of regulation or are you more supportive of growth, even considering the risk of China dominating AI or AI causing unforeseen consequences?
AI, artificial intelligence, I believe in this country and innovation. As I was talking about before, we're better than China on AI now, and the only way we're going to get worse is if we stop developing it. We can't be scared of it. We should not be scared of anything that regards innovation because we have the smartest and best people in the world right here. And we prove it over and over and over again. Because where did AI start? Right here. And so, look, are there some ways that we have to regulate it? Sure, especially regarding national security. But we should not be afraid of artificial intelligence. It is going to make, once again, America the envy of the world in terms of our innovation. And it's going to be a good thing. And, are there risks? There's risks to everything we do. But is supporting American scientists and American thinkers to make sure that this stuff gets used in the right way. And, someone will try to mess around with it. You and I both know that. And when they do, the government has to be there to step on them. But we should not be turning away from AI because we're scared of it. We're the innovators of this world. We're the smartest and hardest working people in the world. and that's why I would go with AI. I'm saving you for last, okay? Because I don't think if I go to you in the middle of this thing, I think you and I may just leave together. I don't want. But you're getting it. But you're going to be the last question. I'm previewing the last question already. It's that guy. All right, you in the back, sir.
Thank you, Governor. I appreciate it. I first want to comment that the last town hall I was at, your lovely wife was not here.
Mm-hmm.
And I have been watching her. She's not looked at her watch once. And she is...
So far, so good.
So far, so good. And she is hanging on your every word, which is a tribute to...
Pretty good after 40 years, right? I mean,
exactly.
Like, it's not bad.
Exactly.
Not bad.
I just wanted to mention that in the... I wanted to clarify
She's
something.
clapping for you, by the way, not me.
Yeah. I believe it was the second debate where the question was asked if you would support Donald Trump.
Yeah, it's the first one.
As a convicted felon.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe you were the only one that did not raise
Me and
your
Asa
hand.
Hutchinson didn't raise our hands, yeah.
I just wanted to throw this out there that if you get the opportunity in another debate to remind everyone on that stage that a convicted felon cannot vote in this country.
Yeah. I said that at the last debate.
Did you?
Yeah, I
missed it.
said, look, Donald Trump, if he's our nominee on election day, won't be able to vote for himself. Won't be able to vote for himself. I mean, how ridiculous is this? And Nikki and Ron and Vivek raised their hands. Yeah, I said Vivek and someone groaned. I'm with you. You should be on the stage with him. But I smacked him around pretty good Wednesday night, didn't I? They raised their hands and said, yes, even if he's a convicted felon, I will vote for him. John Adams and Thomas Jefferson were spinning in their graves. They're arguing in heaven going, why didn't you remember to put the criminal thing in there as president? That you can't be a criminal and be president of the United States. I mean, I think they didn't put it in because they thought, who would ever have the gall to do this? And they thought, the American people will never permit that. Okay? I believe if Washington came down from heaven right now and dropped himself right in the middle of this town hall, he'd say, what are you worried about? I always believe the American people will be smarter than to elect a criminal to be president of the United States. And look, this is the point. This is the biggest issue in the race. It's bigger than every other question that's been asked, because if we don't have somebody in the White House who we can trust, who has character and integrity, what the hell else? Why would you care what he thinks or she thinks? Because everything they say you won't be able to believe. That's why I don't understand why they raised their hands. That's why I don't understand why they wouldn't answer the question in the fourth debate about whether he's fit or not. That's why I can't understand why Nikki Haley said yesterday he's fit to be president. That is a judgment on her character. Her character to say that. And I will just tell you this, and you saw, by the way, like, this isn't personal. You all saw the other night, I defended her on the debate stage when that punk went after her, right? Like, and you know, the press, God love them, they're so cynical. Like, when I got off the stage, they're all like, what was the strategy behind you defending Nikki Haley? Is there some unspoken allegiance between the two of you? I go, yeah, we're both human beings. Like, look, my mother was a very strong woman with very strong opinions. And she expected to be treated with respect. And that's what she demanded of her sons. This is the way you treat people. And, you know, I saw some of the stuff, as you mentioned, the first 15 minutes that people are, you know, barking back and forth at each other. But when he compared her intelligence to the intelligence of his 3-year-old, I'm sorry, I've known Nikki for 13 years. We've worked together for 13 years. We don't agree on a lot of things, but she is a smart, accomplished woman. And to compare to his 3-year-old, it's ridiculous. So when I say this stuff, it's not personal. Like, this is, you know, as they said in my all-time favorite movie, and you can imagine, you know what my all-time favorite movie is. You're from Jersey. It's The Godfather. Of course it is. And he said, you remember that line, it's not personal, it's business. When I talk about why she isn't standing up against Donald Trump, when I talk about how she's flip-flopping all over the place on abortion, when I talk about why she won't answer about his fitness, well, that's not personal. That's business. That's what this business is about. You got to answer those questions and be honest and candid. And if you say that somebody who said it's okay to suspend the Constitution of the United States is fit to be president, when the oath is that you swear to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution, not suspend. Maybe he's confused. How can you say that someone who is willing to suspend the Constitution is fit to be president? It's outrageous. And what it is political pandering. Because what she's sitting there and saying to herself is, it's going to offend some people. Some people who like Trump are going to be offended. And God knows I don't want to offend by telling the truth. So I won't lie though. So I'll just skate. That's not leadership. Leadership is standing up and telling the truth and taking what comes in return for telling the truth. And if you're going to dig your heels in on anything, you dig your heels in on the truth. They showed who they were when they raised their hands on that stage, and they haven't changed their position since. So I guess we have to believe them. And how are you going to beat Donald Trump if you won't even talk about what's wrong with him? I'm the only one here trying to beat Trump. I know what all the rest of them are doing. You know, Nikki's running commercials, kicking the bejesus out of Ron. And Ron's running commercials, kicking the bejesus out of Nicole, and her tricky Nikki. I saw that ad, right? Like, they're fighting for something. They're fighting for first loser. If you don't beat Trump, you're in second place or third or fourth. It's time to take on Trump. I will tell you this. Someone said, can you do it? It's the only thing that will do it. I can't guarantee you I'm going to win. What the hell do I know? I'm not a soothsayer. But I will tell you this. I've been in politics for 14 years. And the only way you beat somebody is to beat them. You want to be the man, you got to beat the man. And you can't do it by saying, oh, he's great, but I'm greater. You got to look and you got to see what makes me different. And let me be honest. The first thing that makes me different is I'm not a liar and he is. And that's it. And if you can stand up for that, then you don't belong being president.
Thank you for taking the time to come speak with us. And I honestly came here to listen to you and to hear you. And I'm going to use an analogy of something. There was a question posed to the New York Times in 1897. Is there a Santa Claus? And please don't anyone put anything to that other than the essence of what I need to believe in a president. I need to find out if the America that I love is still capable of being the America that I love. And so I'm here tonight to find out and listen. And I don't honestly say that I'm impressed, but I appreciate your honesty and your truthfulness. And right now, I feel like the line that the New York Times gave back is pretty prevalent. And I'm saying that sincerely. My next question in regards to that, though, is you mentioned the AI. I'm going to try and be quite. There are various committees that used to be evolved. Some of them were in respect to the NIH that were supposed to oversee medical oversight. That were supposed to watch doctors and lawyers and Indian chiefs, whatever it is you want to call it. It wasn't done appropriately. Same thing's been done with AI. There are a lot of things that even McCain warned about that were embedded in various things like the Obama plan. So right now we have a lot of things that we have to be cautious of, and people are making. I know that we're this great country, we come up with great ideas, but are you going to be willing to put somebody in place, entities, oversight committees, to make sure that we do it appropriately? Because that's right now where we're on the cusp of some very dangerous things.
Well, first of all, thank you for being here. And thank you for being willing to listen. And I'll get to your first part later, but I'll deal with your second part first. My background is I'm a prosecutor. That's how I got into politics. I was a lawyer who was made a prosecutor and did it really well. And then once you do that really well, people say you should run for office. And that's kind of the way it happened. I was the U.S. attorney for 7 years. And, we prosecuted a lot of crime and did it really well. And the reason that's relevant is because I believe in law and order. And I think the essence of what you're saying about oversight and appropriate oversight is about following the rules, setting good rules, and enforcing that they be followed. I don't think you could pick a better candidate to enforce law and order than me, because that's the way I started my career. And I believe, oh, look at Nikki's on TV. Hi, Nikki. I believe as a prosecutor that the law applies to everyone, and that the law has to be designed in a way that it benefits the overwhelming number of people in the country. And I think the same thing about regulation on the things you're talking about. And so, yeah, I think we've had failed attorneys general in the last few attorneys general that we've had, the Jeff Sessions, the current guy, going back to Eric Holder and Loretta Lynch. These have been people who thought they were the president's lawyer. They're not. They're your lawyer. They're your lawyer. And we need to have, once again, a president who says, you go and do the job and enforce the rules. And as long as you do it fairly and evenly and consistent with the law, I'm not going to bother you. Go do your job. I got plenty to do over here. You go do your job. So I would do that regarding any of the issues you just talked about. And on the health issue in particular, we came to know during COVID that a lot of those rules were not being followed and enforced when we were in a real crisis. And it can't happen again, because if it does, the American people have no faith in our medical system, and that's a dangerous place for us to be. And on your first part, I would just say this, I totally agree with you, and that's why I'm running. When you say, I want to believe in my country again, and I want to believe that this country can be the country that I always loved, and that it can be that way again, if there's one biggest reason why I'm running, that's it. I just watched what was going on with both parties, but particularly with my own, and said, I can't stand by and let this happen without going out there and just letting it fly. And the greatest thing about this campaign is I don't spend any time trying to figure out how to thread the needle. I'm just here it is. This is what I think. Take it or leave it. Because the reason I ran in the first place was because I looked around and saw somebody who had been president, who completely let us down. And now we have a guy in there now who I don't agree with his ideas, but worse yet, I don't think he's capable and competent to do the job. And that's scary. It's scary that we may wind up with a choice in November, if we don't act now, between someone who's a criminal and someone who's mentally incompetent. That's just not acceptable in this country. I can't deal with what the Democrats are doing. They're going to have to fix their own problems. I got enough to do over here. But that's why I'm doing this, because I believe in this country, and I love this country, and I want to bring it back, as I said earlier, to a place where we open our hearts to each other and remind each other about how damn lucky we are to be here. And we have to act like we're lucky every day. Doesn't mean put blinders on. We see the problems and we try to fix them. But it's about remembering at core who this country has always been, not only to ourselves, but how we're the indispensable country to the rest of the world. And we want to get back to that. And if I'm president, that's what we will get back to. All right, let's go to this guy right here.
Right. So when I talk to the Trumpers in my orbit, a couple of things are expressed. And I'm looking to you to understand how you would interact with these perspectives. And the first one is a lot of Trumpers like Trump for the sole reason that he wants to poke the system, the establishment, in the eye. That's it. He's the guy to poke the establishment in the eye. Right now, then you have others like the Freedom Caucus who more than want to poke the establishment in the eye, whatever is meant by the establishment, they want to burn it down with no thought of what they're going to be replacing it with. And then you have these others, this third group, where they're living in this echo chamber that's spinning a particular narrative about everything that's going on and why Donald Trump is the greatest thing since sliced bread. And my question to you is how do you turn that around? How do you get them to start talking about what constitutes good governance, like negotiation, like compromise, and all the things that go, like listening, and all the other stuff that goes with actually good governance, as opposed to poking the establishment in the eye, just burning the establishment down, or living in an echo chamber? Thank you.
Good question. First of all, what I say to Trump supporters who say they love him because he pokes the establishment in the eye is he is the establishment. What the hell are we talking about? He was president of the United States. That's establishment. He's a billionaire from New York. Who do we think he is? Like some populist, Robin Hood? He is a New York real estate billionaire. You think he gives a damn about regular people? What in his life has he ever shown to make you think he cares about regular people? He is the establishment. He is the establishment. And he raises money like the establishment. Remember when he first ran? The great thing about me will be I never have to take anybody else's money. I won't be beholden to anyone. I won't be like these other guys who are raising money. He's never started spending his own money again. He spent $40 million of donors' money on his legal fees. He spent $200,000 of his donors' money on his wife's stylist. He paid his son's girlfriend $60,000 from donated money to give a speech for 3 minutes on January 6th. He's calling somebody else the establishment? Disgraceful. So that would be point one. Point, right? I mean, that's it. That's who he is. Point two, on the Freedom Caucus, guys, look, let me tell you about almost everybody in the House of Representatives. Sheep. Sheep. Okay? And you noticed it with Kevin McCarthy the other day, right? Here's Kevin McCarthy saying, I'm endorsing Trump for president after Trump knifed him and got him kicked out of the speaker's job. I'm endorsing Trump for president, and I'd be willing to serve in his cabinet. I mean, look, here's what I know about them. Whoever is the boss, they will follow. They have no principles. Please, look at Matt Gaetz. He's got principles. I mean, these people are ridiculous. And so, we can't rotate our lives around what they think. Your job as president is to get them in the room and figure out a way to get them to do what you need them to do. And sometimes you're going to have to give them a couple of things that are important to them. I'm okay with that. That's negotiation and compromise. Like, they got elected too. But let's not pretend they lead. None of them lead. They couldn't pick a leader. They knew who they didn't want. They didn't want McCarthy. And it took them 3 weeks to pick somebody else. They ran all those poor SOBs up the flagpole, shot them once they got to the top of the flagpole, rolled them down, and rolled the next sucker up there. Till they finally pick a guy that half of them didn't even know. Did you hear something afterwards? I think I know that Mike Johnson guy. I think he's the guy with the glasses, right? Yeah, no, I think he's from somewhere in the South. I mean, they didn't even know who the hell he was. So let's not worry about their leadership, because we're waiting for them to lead. We're going to be waiting. It's like waiting at the bus for the bus that never comes at the bus stop. It ain't ever coming. And on the third piece of it, look, I really do believe that in the end, the American people will push folks who support Donald Trump to get with the program. The program being, let's make some progress in this country. Because what I say to Trumpers all the time is like, okay, so tell me why you voted for Trump. And they'll say, well, he's going to build the wall. I go, well, he didn't, right? Yeah, so, but it was the other people who stopped him. I said, really? So that's not his fault. No. Someone will say, well, he's a businessman. He ran the government like a business. I said, let me tell you something. If this government was a business, it would be like many of other Donald's businesses, in bankruptcy. Right? Look I know, I'm from New Jersey, okay? He put his casinos in New Jersey into bankruptcy 3 times. 3 times. Who goes bankrupt with a casino? They always win. Like, how bad a crooked a businessman do you have to be to fail 3 times in a casino? 3 times. It's breathtaking. And by the way, don't forget, that's when casino gambling existed in 2 places in the whole country. Nevada and Atlantic City, New Jersey. And that was it. He had a monopoly on 1,500 miles of the country. And he still went bankrupt 3 times. And they look at me and go, well, I'm sure there's some reason for that. Yeah, he's a crook. That's what the reason is for. He skimmed all the money out of the casino, used it to invest in real estate in New York City, and didn't keep the money in the casino. And then when the casino didn't have the money to pay off its bets, he went, I got to go bankrupt. And screw all the bondholders. I'll give you and I use this story with Trumpers all the time. I'll end with this because it's a personal story about me and Donald. So I become governor in 2010, and we have, as I mentioned in response to his question, an $11 billion deficit on a $29 billion budget. So it's more than a third. And so I'm working to try to figure this out. And one day, my phone rings in the office, and my secretary comes in. She said, Donald Trump's on the phone for you. This is 2010. Oh, okay. So I get on the phone. Hello, Donald. I'd known him for probably 8 years at that point. Hello, Donald. How are you? He goes, hey, I've got a super, super idea to fix the budget problem you're in. And I said, look, I'm looking for good ideas. This is a lousy situation. What do you got? And he goes, go bankrupt. This is a honest, God-honest story. Go bankrupt. I said, no, Donald, I'm a state. I'm not allowed to go bankrupt. Like, states are not allowed to go bankrupt. And he goes, Chris, just go bankrupt. They'll sue you. He said, fight them in court for a couple of years. By the time you lose, they'll forget why you were fighting in the first place. And he said, and then you can just blame it on the court. Then it won't be your fault and you'll get reelected. That's his advice. Yet, Nikki Haley says he's fit to be president. We're in $7.8 trillion debt. When I say that to Trumpers, they're like, he didn't really say that, did he? I'm like, oh yeah, I was there. He said it. I mean, there's going to be some people you're not going to be able to persuade. And I'll have some of these conversations. And once I get 10 or 15 minutes into it, and I realize that I'm not getting anywhere, I go, okay, look, we just have to agree to disagree. We shake hands and I walk away. I had a guy today when I got into the airport in Manchester. He came, Governor Christie, how are you? So great you're in New Hampshire. I said, thank you. Shakes my hand. He goes, I'm not voting for you. And I said, okay, why? And he goes, I'm a Trumper. I love Trump. And I said, what's he ever done for you? And he goes, I don't know, but I love him. Well, look, at that point, it's time to just get in the car, right? And go to the next one. Like, you just got, there's some people you're not going to be able to convince. So part of this too is we don't need unanimity in the country. We just need to bring a large majority of the country together. And that's what I'll try to do. And for those other folks, some of them will be angry and maybe they'll pull away from politics. I hope they don't, but some may. But we just have to be honest about it. We have to be honest. All right. Let's see. Where's the lady back there that I was going to ask? No, she left? Oh, that's bullshit, guys, right? I mean, I tell her she's going to get a question and then she can't. She's out. Maybe her question got asked, maybe. All right, let me go to you right here. Because you got the great Christmas sweater on. So.
Thank you.
Here, you take it.
Oh, thank you. First, welcome to New Hampshire.
We'll be back.
And just let you know that we have minds of our own.
I'm counting on it.
Okay. I know you ran for president 8 years ago. I met you with your daughter. And it's a simple question. One is, how has America changed in these 8 years? And how have you changed in these 8 years?
You guys do have a mind of your own. America has gotten angrier, more pessimistic, more inward looking rather than outward looking, more cynical. and richer in many respects, financially. But for the most part, I think America has changed for the worse in the last 8 years. And the good news is that we're so natively good that even those bad changes don't make us a bad country. They just make us less than what we could be. Right? How have I changed? A lot. Right? I mean, look, when I came here 8 years ago, I was 53 years old. Two of my kids were still living at home. One more of them was in college, and one of them was just getting ready to get out of college. So I was in a much different phase of my life as a father. And I think I'm much more mature than I was 8 years ago. Like, I've gone through a lot more things in life as you get older that just make you, I think, if you do it the right way, a more mature, wiser, more in control person. I think the biggest difference from me 8 years ago was, like, 8 years ago, I was frantic. I was frantically trying to do this because I felt strongly about a lot of things, and I figured the more frantic I got, the better I'd do. And what I've realized over the last 8 years is that, you know, what people want more than anything else is someone who can restore the things that have been lost and can do it with a sense of calm and control and adulthood. And I think at 61, I'm just a much more mature, experienced, wiser guy than I was. There are a lot of people who wanted me to run for president in 2012. And I had been governor for about a year and a half. And I remember at the time when I said I wouldn't, and I had to hold a national press conference to say I wouldn't, which was also completely ridiculous. Every network carried it for me to say I'm not running. But what I said at the time was, I'm not ready. And what I've learned over the 12 years since is I was right. I wasn't ready. I didn't understand how unready I was when I said I wasn't ready. But now with the perspective of 12 years later, looking back, oh gosh, that would have been tough. And I wouldn't have been very good. I'd have been okay, but not very good. Now, I feel ready to do the really hard things and not worried about how it will affect me personally. Because my life has already been an incredibly great and blessed life. You know, I've got a wife I've been married to for 37 years and with for 40 years, right? We've got 4 amazing children who are now 30 and 27 and 23 and 20. And they worry about their father every day. And they all do it in different ways, but they do, and they communicate to me, and it makes me know that Mary Pat and I did something right. Because they care about each other, they like each other, and I feel so blessed. So I feel like a much more blessed person than I felt like 8 years ago. I have a much greater appreciation for it. And lastly, the way I'd say I'm different is that I really don't worry about being loved anymore. And that doesn't mean I don't want to be. Please love me. Okay? I really want you to. But I'm not worried about it anymore. What I know is that I am who I am, and that I'm comfortable with that. And I'm comfortable that I'll be some people's cup of tea and I won't be others. But that what you know about me, and I hope you learn about me over the course of the next number of years, I hope 8, is that I'm the kind of person who you can rely on. It was really funny. Someone introduced me. I forget where the heck I was, where we were, because there's someone who said that one of the things that he likes about me the most is when you see me, I'm surrounded by people and friends. Yeah, I was at an event in Florida, a fundraising event, and this is a guy who's known me for 25 years, and he said, when I came into Chris's orbit, he was already the U.S. attorney, and then he became the governor. He's a really prominent guy. And when I would go to social things at their home, he had friends from grade school there. And I think that what I know about myself now is that takes work. to maintain those relationships and to know that you're not bigger than those relationships, even though you're on TV or you're in the newspapers or you get to meet famous people. And so I think it's just made me more genuine and more direct. And I'm not afraid to answer questions because I know who I am and I know what I believe. But the last part is what he said. And the last thing I'd say to you is I'm a better listener now than I was 8 years ago. Because I've realized that by watching others not do it, how much you have to. I always was a pretty good listener, but now I'm a really good listener. And I do these town hall meetings. I did 150 of them in my first term as governor. I did 100 of them last time I ran for president in New Hampshire. The reason I do them is because, man, I learn something all the time from what people ask. I learn what they care about, what's on their mind. And I think all those things make me different than I was 8 years ago. And I really believe in my heart that if I get the chance, it'll make me a better president. I had a conversation with my dad like 3 nights ago. He'd watched something. He's probably watching tonight at home. We're live streaming this stuff on our website, so he usually watches most of this stuff. But I had a conversation with him recently where, he just said to me, "I'm proud of the way you're doing this." And it doesn't matter how old you get, right? If your father or your mother says you're doing it the right way, you think you probably are, right? Because that's where you learned it. So I feel good about where I am now in my life. And no matter what happens in the election, I'll feel good about it. But I don't want to dissuade you. I want to win, all right? And winning beats losing, like by a lot. I've done both. And that's why I want to get your vote. But thanks for the question. All right, I'm at last question because it's... Well, did you see me rotating towards you? I'm rotating towards you. Now, wait a second. I just looked at my watch. This is when Mary Pat's going to get pissed at me. I'm going to do 2. Hold the microphone. Just hold it. I'm not going to you yet. You're going to be last. I'm going to do one more. I'm going to do that lady right there. And then I'll come to you. So hold the mic.
Thank you so much for taking my question.
You're welcome.
I'm in healthcare. I'm a nurse, registered nurse for 35 years. And clearly we have some work to do to create a higher level of health for all our people in our country. We've talked a lot about insurance and, the broken, whether it's Obamacare or that sort of thing. But I want to find out from you, if we were going to make some progress in healthcare, what are the most important things for you to support? Where do you think we need to focus our efforts in order to make some progress to fix our system and to help our people be healthier?
Well, the first thing I think we need to do is to increase the number of people in certain areas of healthcare that we're short on. Nursing is one of them. General practitioner doctors is one of them. And mental health and addiction treaters, whether they're counselors, psychologists, psychiatrists, or nurses trained in that area. In those areas, I think we're really deficient right now in the country. And we have an outpouring of need for mental health treatment, for addiction services treatment, and for well care. We have a really great system to take care of you when you're sick, but our system kind of stinks to not get you sick. And so I think those are the areas that I would focus on in terms of increasing personnel. And the way I would do it would be to say to folks who are going through school now, if you go into one of those areas and you commit to doing it for at least 10 years when you get out, we'll forgive your student loans. Because for a lot of those, as you know, whether it's a nurse or a doctor, you have to borrow a lot of money to get through it, and especially today. And I think it would be an incentive for some of those people if they knew they're not going to have to worry about paying that debt back. And that's going to help them to buy a house, live where they want to live, and go work where they want to work. So that's the first thing that I think we need to do. Second, on the prescription side of things, because as you know, most people are getting treated these days with pharmaceuticals, much less than intervention in terms of hospital care or others, unless they don't take their pharmaceuticals, right? So for many of these things, we have a way to treat people, and they're much too expensive. And the reason they're much too expensive, in my view, is these pharmacy benefit managers. These are the middlemen that get in between the pharmaceutical companies and your local pharmacy. And what they do is the pharmaceutical companies offer rebates on their drugs, their most popular drugs, of anywhere from like 50 to 75% that are supposed to go to you. But these pharmacy benefit managers get in between and they take 60 to 70% of the discount for managing the process. Thank you very much. And then it winds up costing us a lot more. And the reason you know that's a huge racket, you know who owns most of the pharmacy benefit managers now? The insurance companies. So they're collecting on both ends. I would get rid of them and let those pharmaceutical companies deal directly with pharmacies and pass those rebates directly on to consumers. Because if we did that, we would bring down drastically the price of pharmaceutical costs for everybody, and the government included, with what we pay in Medicare and Medicaid on pharmaceutical costs. So I would do that. And the third thing I would focus on is that we don't do enough, nearly enough, for the people who are in the worst harm. And what happens is they go to emergency rooms, they get treated in emergency rooms. And the folks that I look at the most in this regard are our vets. Like, you look at our veterans, the VAs are overcrowded, understaffed, overwhelmed. You can make VA a little bit better, but only marginally better. What I think should happen is every person who is discharged from our military with an honorable discharge should get a card that lets them go to a doctor anywhere they want to go. We owe them at least that. And not waiting in line, at a VA for months and months to get treatment, because what we're seeing amongst our vets is an absolute epidemic of suicide. And a lot of it is because of what they went through, but because they can't go and get help, because there's a huge waiting list to get in and get any kind of treatment for them, both for their physical pain, which can often lead them to addiction, to kill that pain, or for their psychological pain, which we're not treating them for. And so the third piece that I think about the most are our vets, and say, like, look, those men and women have done a lot to sacrifice for our country. And for us, once they leave that service honorably, for us to look at them and say, well, go in line at the VA, and whenever they get to you, they get to you. And as for the rest of it, I hope you do okay. I think that's just not good enough for a country that has the greatest military in the world, who make enormous sacrifices for us. So those are the three things that come right to mind. There's probably another 8 others, but those are the 3 that I would start with. But thanks for your question. All right. You're it, Chief. You have been extraordinarily, and I suspect,
my third time here.
uncharacteristically patient. So here we go. Let's do it.
How much time do we have?
Not much. Look at her.
2 quick questions.
All right, fire.
First of all, I love New Hampshire. I started coming up here in '89 to meet my stepfather over in Derry. Anybody here remember Pete Tomaney, president of the New Hampshire Trap and Skeet Association? No? The only reason he let me marry his daughter is because I nailed 80% of them skeet shooting. Anyway, I was a social worker at Youth Corrections in Middlesex County for 33 years. Remember that place?
I do.
I was the guy who sued CWA in 2003 for overcharging dues, pro se. I got that charge of neglect overturned in 2007. They didn't bother for 2 years. New Jersey DIFUS, you want to talk about them?
Yeah, no, I spent 8 years with them. I've had enough.
Thank you. They didn't bother reading the incident report, which proved I was off work on the day of the incident. So I had some close calls. 80% of those kids in jail could be saved if they just had caring adult supervision. I spent 21 years at the group home, Middlefields, taking the kids fishing every day, teaching them how to cook, teaching them how to be responsible adult people. My first question is, why don't you, like Denzel Washington, instead of bashing cops with black kids, why don't you preach to parents of all colors, stay home and raise your own kid right? It's not the government's job.
Why don't I say that?
Yeah.
I don't know that I haven't said that. I mean, look,
I'm not blaming you. I'm saying all politicians.
No, look, I mean, I think let me deal with that. I think the first thing you can do about this, not say it, is do it. Is set an example.
Instead of Democrats bribing voters to break up their families and give them welfare, bribe them to stay together and take care of your kids.
Look, I think that the single most important thing in the world is to try to do everything we can to encourage people to be responsible mothers and fathers. And that if you're going to bring life into this world, that you have a responsibility to shepherd that life to the point where they can take care of themselves. I haven't found the age where they can take care of themselves yet. I'm at 30. 27, 23, and 20. I live in hope, but I think that's important to do. And I think the best way to do that, by the way,
Real quick,
give me a second to finish the answer to number one, all right, is to set an example.
Yeah.
And we should all be setting examples every day for that, and make that the norm in this country again. That's the best thing to do. Go ahead, next.
I got a dozen relatives in the military. If you've ever been to St. Peter's Hospital in New Brunswick,
Sure.
you maybe know my sister Katie on 3G. She was a head nurse.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
It's my sister Katie.
All right.
Her
I know.
husband was Dr. Joe.
It is one of the biggest maternity hospitals in the
Everything.
country.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So Dr. Joe Zula was her husband. He
Him
passed
I
away
didn't
last
know.
month. He went to Venezuela. I was in Texas with her when they got the declassified letter. He was in Venezuela with President Kennedy in '61 as his personal army doctor after he got a Medal of Honor for performance surgery on General MacArthur. My father was a platoon sergeant. His brother went to his grid. Hell yeah.
They want the question.
I know you do, but I got a lot of people in the military.
Yep.
And I can tell you, if Hitler was going to if someone was going to push my mom down the stairs and Hitler wanted to save her, I wouldn't stop him. I wouldn't praise him, but I wouldn't stop him. That's what people are doing with Trump. They don't love Trump. Trump went to the United Nations and said, we're a nation of patriots, not globalists. If you go to, I'm going to say this real fast, if I can't prove it, I wouldn't say it. On YouTube, Cronkite Hillary, World Federalist, you're going to see a video at the 5:45 mark where Walter Cronkite got congratulated by Hillary right after he said, we Americans are going to have to yield up our sovereignty, and it's going to be a bitter pill. They want to do what they did in Europe with the European countries.
All right,
They
I
want
get
to combine Mexico and Canada.
I get your gist.
That's why the borders are open. That's why they want our guns.
Well, look.
And I trust everybody here with guns more than the CIA or FBI.
Well, let me say this. A couple of things. First off, if I'm president of the United States, we're not combining with Mexico or Canada because we're not Mexican or Canadian. We're American. Secondly, I stand up and protect the Second Amendment because there are no inferior amendments in the Constitution, in my view. They're all to be treasured, they're all to be protected, and they're all to be stood up for. And so I believe in that, and I'll continue to believe in those things. Third, I think there is a difference between being the indispensable nation and being a globalist. And I think that the biggest disservice that Donald Trump has done on the world stage is to equate the two. America has achieved a lot of its greatness by the relationships that it builds all around the world, the alliances it builds all around the world, in order to make sure that we have people all around the world who will stand up for each other and for freedom and for liberty and for the rule of law. And we cannot, in my view, America first under Donald Trump's definition means America alone. And I will tell you that America will never be first if America is alone. We have to interact with the rest of the world. We have to form friendships and alliances that will be there for us when we need them and when they need us. And I absolutely believe that America is the indispensable nation in the entire world. And that I think that those people in our party, specifically Trump, DeSantis, and Ramaswamy, who want a foreign policy which pulls up the drawbridge and fills in the moat, are doing a horrible disservice to this country. And so I believe we need to engage, and we'll continue to engage if I'm president. But it will not mean, to answer your concern, that we ever give up American sovereignty. The 250th birthday I talked about before is a celebration of the first day of American sovereignty away from the British. And there's no chance I'm turning that sovereignty over to anybody else but the people in this room and who you represent around this country. So let me end with this so that I can stay married. Because she told me that I absolutely have to be done before 8:30, and it's 8:20. So I'm going to stay married. I'm not going to go on for 10 minutes. 5. First of all, thank you. Thank you for coming tonight. I appreciate it very much. Lots of other things you could be doing on a Wednesday night, and I'm glad you're here and I'm glad you're listening. 2, your vote matters. It is precious. And it is even more precious in this state because of what we talked about before. You're the first. You're going to set the tone. And I will tell you something. If we are going to restore honor and integrity to the Oval Office, it is going to start here in New Hampshire on January 23rd. And you're going to do it. You're going to shock the pundits. You're going to shock the poor, tortured pollsters. You're going to shock Donald Trump because he never comes here. He's coming here, I think, later in the week. You know what he'll do? You think he'll be standing here in the American Legion taking questions? No. He'll stand up on some stage with a whole bunch of people in the audience, and he'll talk for 2 hours to you and tell you how aggrieved he is, how horribly he's been treated, how terrible it all is, and that he's doing all of it for you. Remember, 8 years ago, he said, I am your voice. 8 years later, he says, I am your retribution. We do not want a president who believes that the presidency is to be used for retribution. The presidency to be used to be inspiring, to lift us as a country, to make us better and greater and more confident and less cynical and less angry, not more cynical and more angry. And I will tell you this, I am not going to stand by, idly by, and let others in this race try to get by with happy talk. I like everybody. Everybody's great, even Donald Trump. No. And the worst part of it is, by the way, they know it's not true. That's them playing politics. And I am disappointed that they raised their hands in that first debate and that they stand by it today. It is disappointing, and it is beneath the office they aspire to. So you're not going to always agree with me. You probably don't always agree with me tonight. But I will tell you this, you're always going to hear me. I'm always going to interact with you. And you're always going to know what I think. And if you give me 4 years and you don't like it, kick me out. That's what makes this country great. Send me home. I'll be okay. I'll be disappointed, but I'll be okay. Nothing about this, for me, is life and death. But it is about how great our country can be. And we can be much greater than we are today. We're great now. We can be even greater. Because the only thing that limits us is our belief in each other. That's all that it does. If we believe in each other, we can do anything. And this country gives you the chance to do that. And if you honor me with the opportunity to be president of the United States, I will honor you by acting with honesty and integrity and judgment and caring for the people who elected me, not just the people who voted for me, the people who elected me. That'll be every person in this country. So we got 41 days to go. And I need you to be locked in, not only on yourselves, but on your neighbors and your friends. There is no one in New Hampshire who should have an excuse not to vote in this election. Nobody. The stakes are too high. The world is on fire, and America needs to lead. And that leadership is going to start on January 23rd, right here in New Hampshire. When I went to ask President Bush 43, who was the guy who appointed me U.S. attorney, whether I should get in this race or not, one of the things he said to me was, you know, Chris, be patient and be persistent. People will get it. Have faith in the American people. That sounds like somebody who's been president. And the last thing he said to me was, oh, by the way, I was walking out. He said, don't forget, ask for the vote. He said, you know, you stand in front of people for an hour and a half or 2 hours and you're pitching all this stuff and you think, well, they must know I want their vote. But he goes, but people like to be asked. And don't forget to ask. And I said, well, thanks for the advice, Mr. President. And he said, what would I know? I only won it twice. So this is for you, Mr. President. I want your vote. I need your vote. And with your vote, we'll change the country together. Thanks for coming tonight.